Good afternoon. This afternoon I'm going to be reading from Matthew 18, verses 1 to 7 in the ESV. At that time the disciples came to Jesus, saying, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" And calling to him a child, he put him in the midst of them and said, "Truly I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Whoever receives one such child in my name receives me. But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck and to be drowned into the depth of the sea. Woe to the world for temptations to sin, for it is necessary that temptations come, but woe to the one by whom the temptation comes." It's a lot there, huh? Okay, this first part. Excuse me. I had something to drink, and it's not helping. Okay. When you think of children, little children, in this context, what do you think of? Now, we're all born with sin natures, right? So none of us are perfect from birth. And it doesn't take long for a child to start to show that sin nature, does it? But that's not what this is talking about here. This is talking about children have that innocence about them. They have that trusting nature. They, like you tell them to jump, they'll just jump. They just trust that you're going to catch them. They believe very easily. And if they're told to pray for something, if they're children who are raised that way, they'll do it because they were trained to do that. So children are an image of those who are very, very trusting and follow instructions well. At least to a certain point they do. And but there, some children's prayers are some of the most precious prayers, because they trust, they don't have all these other things clouding out their minds and everything like that. So the point is, if we're going to come to be the Lord's disciples, if we're going to come to him in faith, then we need to humble ourselves. We need to become like children who are trusting, when God says, "I want you to do this," we do it. We don't question it. We do it because we trust him. We trust the Lord with our lives. We believe that he's going to do what he says he's going to do. We believe his commands, and we want to follow them. We want to please him because we love him, and that's how children are. And again, they're not perfect, but children tend to be, unless they learn very early on not to, they tend to be very, very trusting, very much, will follow, what they've been instructed to do. And so he's saying that's how we need to be. We need to be humble. We need to turn and become like that. To become trusting, and to turn means to turn away from our sinful lifestyles and practices, and now to turn and follow Jesus Christ with our lives in that trusting kind of way. That children are naturally have that trusting nature. And then it goes on, and it says, "Whoever receives one child in my name receives me. Whoever causes one of these little ones to believe in me to sin, it would be better." And it goes on. Well, he's not just talking about children. He's talking here about those who have turned, who have repented, who have humbled themselves before God, who have believed in Jesus Christ, and who are now trusting Jesus Christ with their lives, just like a humble child would trust, And so he's talking about here, whoever causes these little ones is not just physical children, it's the children of God, those who have trusted in Jesus Christ to be their Lord and Savior, and they're walking with him. If anybody comes along and tries to persuade us to sin against God, and especially if it's somebody who also professes faith in Jesus Christ, then it says it would be better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck and to be drowned in the depth of the sea. That sounds pretty severe, doesn't it? Basically, God is saying that's just a horrible, horrible thing to lead other people into sin. And I don't know about you, but I have had people lead me into sin. Now, we can't be led into sin unless we agree to it, right? But depending on the circumstances, there are times, when we can be really pressured, into that. And we have to be very, very strong in our faith to be able to resist that. And I had a time in my life where my faith wasn't very strong, and I was led into sin by someone, and somebody was just pushing and pushing and pushing, and it was a time, and there's no excuse for me. No excuse. I'm not making any excuse for myself. I had total knowledge, total responsibility for what the choices I made, but that person also had a responsibility, for the choices that were made to try to push me in the wrong direction. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but that was way in my past. God delivered me out of that. But that's just my personal example of that. But what it is saying is, it is just a horrible thing to lead other people into sin. We can't really cause another person to sin because we can't force other people to sin. But there are people in this world who have a lot of power and influence, who can very much pressure people that direction, especially people who are weak spiritually, and maybe have had situations in their lives, that might make them more prone that direction. And that's a sin against God too, to push other people into sin who are trying to walk in fellowship with the Lord, who are trying to walk with him. But again, we're all responsible for what we do. So even if somebody pressures us into sin, we still make that choice, right? We're still responsible for the choices we make, but they are also responsible for pressuring the Lord's children to do things that are against the Lord. And so we need to take this seriously, because it says, "Woe to the world for temptations to sin, for it is necessary that temptations come, but woe to the one by whom the temptation comes." So you don't want to be the one who tempts other people to sin, because we're all going to be tempted, but by the grace of God, we can resist that temptation, can't we? We can say no to sin. The grace of God, which is bringing us salvation, trains us to renounce sin, to say no to sin and to ungodliness and worldly and fleshly passions, and to live self-controlled and upright and godly lives while we wait for Christ's return. And that's in Titus 2:11-14. So God will help us, to resist temptation. He's made that way of escape for us out of temptation to sin. but we have to take that way, don't we? We can choose. We can say no to God, and choose to go our own way, which is the wrong thing to do. Or we can choose to be strong in our faith despite people pressuring us in the wrong direction. And we can say no to those people, and we can say no to Satan and to the temptation, and yes to God, and follow the Lord in his power and in his strength and in his wisdom, and do the right things. But the main point of this is just how horrible it is for people to lead God's people into sin, to pressure them into sin, to even be forceful in trying to get them to sin. That God takes that very seriously. So don't be that person, and be strong against temptation. Be strong against those pressures from other people, because other people can be very very strong, in convincing us to compromise. Don't compromise. Just say no. Say yes to God all the time. Okay.